This week, Fraternity escalates in Pure Blind. There is drama between a Fraternity corporation and Solyaris Chtonium. The second biggest superfleet in drones makes its entrance. The Loot Fairy is still throwing a tantrum. A wandering ark is almost saved. Omist continues to be glassed, although there is some unexpected opposition. The days of Stainrus in Esoteria look numbered. Snuffed Out drop on an anchoring fort, but lose a Titan to Shadow Cartel and Really Strong Alliance, and a pause turns on its owners. Hello pod people, I'm Frost and this is your weekly EVE Online update. Welcome back. So as always, we start off the show by announcing the winners of the Scope Syndication skin of the last prize draw. Now, going back a couple of weeks to the 19th of April, I have Star Viper. And then from last week's episode, I have Zodiac Boirel. And then Muscle Honk, I am waiting for you to get in touch with me through my Discord, please, so that I can give you your skin. Now, it is the beginning of the month, so normally I have a new skin to announce, but at the moment I have not received any new codes. So it's going to be the Kestrel for this episode as well. Luckily, I have a few to spare. Also, I need to say as well, I've had one of my crazy weeks again. So whilst I have read all of your comments, I didn't get the chance to reply to anywhere near as many as I would have liked. So my apologies for that. But rest assured that I did read your comments. So thank you very much for making those. Okay, so assume it's time to get started with the news. As always, I jump up into my box. I have Dotland in front of me. Make sure I've got my pen ready. There we go. I've got my squiggles going as well, so I'm good to go. Okay, so we're going to do our usual thing, and we're going to go kind of around the donut and then sort of focus on the middle in between all of that. So let me just make sure my pen isn't making pinging noises. There we go. All right, so starting off in Pure Blind, the big news here is for the last few weeks has been how Fraternity, specifically the Chinese time zone of Fraternity, were pushing into Bandalog's territory, going after their moons, etc. They were able to take the iHub last week, I think it was in a D7T-CO or C0. But now things have kind of escalated beyond that, and we're now seeing kind of EU time zone getting involved as well. Now, a couple of battle reports. These battle reports are all based around 5ZXX-K, which I go back to my map, is right here, which is kind of the NPC station where Fraternity were staging out of. And there is a Fortizar there that belongs to Bandalogs, and this is what the fights were over. So this first battle report was over the armor timer, and the thing to note here more than anything was just who showed up to assist Bandalog. So I think I talked a bit about this last week. So basically all of the residents of Pure Blind, so that's Greater Trash Community, which is like We Form Volta, Quote Alliance, Scumlords, etc. They form the Greater Trash Community. Then obviously we know Brave Collective live there as well. So they come and help as well. And then we've also seen other groups sort of coming along. Now, one of the ones that grabbed my attention was Silent Company, and I wasn't quite sure why they were involved because they're primarily a high-sec alliance, but I found out now that there is a corporation within Silent Company called the Red Cold Chili Bandalogs Academy, which is kind of the new bro group of Bandalogs, so hence why Silent Company is here. Also, there is a Russian-speaking group called Russian Space Academy, which is another corporation of Silent Company, which have been kind of making an appearance and supporting Bandalogs against Fraternity. Now you can see now with Fraternity, it's moved up to more than just Fraternity now, and actually Winter Coalition. As we see, we have a few Blades of Grass and Literally Triggered, and Caladrius and Siege Green, all being and no visual are part of Winter Co as well, I believe. And Star Trails Alliance, I think, are more associated with Fire Coalitions. We'll see later on, but there is a connection here, and this is worth noting. As later on, we will see a connection appear there with Star Trails Alliance. Now, what happened there? So basically the fort got refed into Hull. The thing to note here as well was that the numbers were definitely favoured on the Winterco side, primarily as well because it took place between 1600 and 1800, which is late Chinese time zone, but also kind of early EU time zone, especially for continental Europe. So they were able to then call upon more pilots to come and assist. So the main result with that was that it was pushed into Hull. Now, the Hull timer came out on Sunday evening. That's Sunday the 1st. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to that, but I did get sort of news. The biggest news was first of all, a lot of people showed up for this. You can see there's 800 or so on the Winterco side and 835 on the Defenders side. Now, we saw some big numbers here from not only Brave Collective, who formed big, obviously Greater Trash Community as well. We formed Blob, we formed Volta. I'll find them here somewhere. Scumlords, Quote Alliance. I didn't mention Quote before, I don't think. They showed up. But then also we had some other groups that came quite a way. So we had the Initiative show up. We had Siberian Squad as well. Both of those being obviously the Imperium. Snuffed Out showed up as well. I think primarily to third party, but you never know. And Pandemic Horde. So Pandemic Horde were there right here, siding with the side of the Defenders, so Bandalogs. So some really kind of interesting kind of setup there. Now the thing was primarily that was of note was out of these 594 Fraternity was that we saw supers come out. So a ton of supers were brought by Winterco, as you could see here, scrolling down. I'm not quite sure why they've all gone into certain categories, considering they're all the same ship types. They're all Hells and Nixes primarily. I think there's a few Aeons in there and Wyverns. There we go, some Wyverns and Aeons. I think the final tally, if I actually go to the summary, there was 77 super carriers, I think, something like that. In fact, I actually had a D-scan of this. I can't remember what I did with it, but you can see here, 25 Hells, 32 Nix, 7 Wyverns, 10 Aeons. And then a bunch of carriers as well. On top of that, we had the hack fleets from both sides. So tons of Munins. We had Nightmares from Greater Trash Community. Now, for which, scroll down, there's some interesting ones here. Drake Navy issues from Pandemic Horde, if I can find them. They're down this list somewhere. There we go, Drake Navy issues. And then, really surprisingly, so Nagas from Siberian Squads. And Siberian Squads seem to like the Nagas. If I remember correctly, when there was a fight going on Esoteria, they showed up in Nagas for that over a Stainrus Astra House. Tornadoes from the Initiative, but Kitsunis from Snuffed Out. So very surprising to see them in Kitsunis, but then like I have said, they have been taking over the role of ship divas from the Initiative and coming out with lots and lots of different doctrines these days. Although Tornadoes from the Initiative isn't kind of their usual doctrine, so that's quite surprising. Unfortunately for the Kitsunis, most of these were bombed by a Pandemic Horde bomber. So they kind of got AWOXed by Pandemic Horde if they were fighting on the side of fighting on the side of Bandalogs. It looks like they were trying to basically just jam everything and create havoc. If I just click on one of these at random, you'll see here we've got a Neox Amatin in his bomber, basically accounting either for all the damage or top damage on pretty much all of these Kitsunis. So let me see if I can close the right tab now and come back to where I was. There we go. So in the end, I believe the Fortizar did die, if I scroll all the way back up. But the numbers were very good, considering you got the loss of the Fortizar here. I will get there eventually, bear with me. There we go. So obviously the 20 billion or so of that 37 billion is the actual Fortizar. And then 33 billion losses to Winterco. Most of those being spread amongst fighters. A lot of fighters were destroyed, and then Unions as well. And the Fortizar, yeah, there we go. So you can see the Fortizar was 21 billion. So there you go. So that's kind of what's happening in Pureblind right now. I expect this conflict to be ongoing. It is content for both sides. And obviously, if it's over Fortizars and stuff, it's not so much of an issue for Bandalogs. They can afford it, but it's more a case, obviously, if they go for the moons, then the Athanors are obviously a source of income for Bandalogs. And I can see them getting very, very upset about that. So we're seeing quite a few groups getting involved in this. Like I said, we saw some Imperium show up for this. Greater Trash Community are involved in this, as well as Brave. And then we saw Pandemic Horde, obviously Fraternity or Winter Coalition having reset everybody recently. There's still a non-invasion pact between Fraternity and PanFam, but they can actually shoot each other over things like this. So they are quite happy to do so. All right, so that gives us up to speed on Pureblind. Then we haven't got much else going on in the north. The main thing is actually a bit of drama between one corporation within Fraternity called War Eagle Fleet, who are right here, and basically their relationship with Slice. Now, they were part of Slice, or Solyaris Chtonium, and then joined Fraternity. And there's basically some bad blood going backwards and forwards. As my understanding is that Slice are unhappy with the fact that they were late resetting within PanFam. So the PanFam reset with Winter Coalition at the end of March. And then I think Slice were resetting on the 10th of April, so about two weeks later. And I believe that my understanding is that War Eagle Fleet attacked Slice during this time, and Slice got upset about it and ended up shooting their Pocos, which is in breach of the non-invasion pact. So we end up with a bit of propaganda here from Slice, which is pretty straightforward. Obviously, you can see the Procurer here. Obviously, Riot Rick and Slice are known for their Procurer fleets, which we'll come on to in a sec. So that's kind of what's happening. So they're talking about the battle miners. Let's go to a report here. So you can see once again, I've talked about these in previous weeks, the Ventures and the Tackle, the Procurers all have loads of drones and newts, and basically they go hunting with this mining fleet, or battle miners should I say, using a Rorqual, which gives them a kind of extended jump range. And they dropped in BWF-ZZ, got themselves a few kills shooting a dark side gate camp, and then went into Fraternity space, went looking for a fight, and I believe eventually Fraternity came out with a Thanatos and some hurricanes, and then kind of just destroyed the fleet. But there you go, so that's kind of what's going on with that. Now, where we're going to go next is we're going to go over to the drone land. So we're going to go over to the home, primarily of Pandemic Horde, Peregrine Falls. And the reason why I want to bring this up is I mentioned in the past, Ragnarok is part of Capital Fusion and also has an alt called A Hell. Capital Fusion used to be part of Horde, Pandemic Horde, and used to hunt in Fraternity space, Winter Coast space. Then Capital Fusion then joined We Form Blob, which are part of Greater Trash Community, and can therefore shoot freely on pretty much anybody except really the Imperium and Greater Trash Community. So they've been focusing their efforts on the drone region, but things have changed, and as you will see on these two kill mails I'm going to show you right now, that basically Ahel, who's right here, has now got some buddies, and it is quite the ragtag army, as I said in the title, because we have the Thigh Appreciation Society, we have Snuffed Out, we have Hello, my name is Isabel's an Alliance, we have We From Volta, Deepwater Hooligans on this particular kill mail, and on the other kill mail we also have Goon Swarm, so and an Alt Alliance as well, and We Form Blob, there we go. So all kinds of different groups all working together, and they're calling themselves the second biggest super fleet in drones. Now, as you can see, this one here has absolutely no fit. It was actually thought it was traveling safely from Fortizar to Fortizar, and guess what? I have a video. The video is right here. As always, I will link this in the description below. So this is the first kill, where it was a ratting super, and basically this fleet of supers, as you can see here from all the purple blobs, landed on this ratting super and made pretty short work of it, which you would do when you've got a fleet of supers showing up. The second one, as I understand, they got intel on that it was traveling. It didn't worry about the fit, because clearly it was going from like Fortizar to Fortizar, so it thought it'd be fine. Unfortunately, they got it before the tethering came into play, because obviously there's a 30-second delay after jumping before getting the tether, and they destroyed it so quickly. You can see they got eyes there on the staging of Horde and watching, see if anything's jumping in. Anyway, so the end result was that they killed it so quickly that most of the fleet, this super fleet, wasn't able to get on the kill mail. So once again, you can watch this in your own time. Link is in the description below. So go and check that out. The second biggest super fleet in drones. Right, so coming back to Lotland, what else we got? Okay, so the loot fairy is still being very mean. Here we have an extra large ship maintenance array. Normally it either drops everything or drops nothing. This time it dropped nothing. And unfortunately, there was a hell that failed to drop, so that was unfortunate. The thing of note, though, is that some of these, I think Girl Next Door and Sierra Tenor, I think, was definitely part of that group of supers that we just talked about. It looks like there's another Ragnarok there that belongs to Deepwater Hooligans. So that may get involved in that group of supers, or it may just stay within its own group. I don't know yet. But either way, to be aware that not only are all these supers kind of wandering around the drone lands, there's also a Ragnarok. That's not a Ragnarok, but Edward Eric, who is floating around in the drone lands. Then a little bit of information about the outer passage and test. A group has left test. It's worth noting because it is Disorderly Vagrants, who are a big group. They were originally in Brave, moved over to test, 352 tunes in the Alliance, and they're very active PvP-wise. And they have left test to go to Severance being Fire Coalition. If I remember correctly, they're a lot of Diva are, that's the ticker, Diva, are US time zone, which would make sense for them to go into Severance. Severance are primarily a US time zone group within Fire Coalition. So there you go. So that's a big move that's worth noting. And then coming back to the Loot Fairy, we have a Prowler that was running around with a whole bunch of skill injectors, 37 of them to be precise. And the Loot Fairy decided to drop absolutely nothing, or virtually nothing, dropped just 13 million out of a 24.5 billion drop, and that was in the Citadel in Sivala on the Uadama Gate. So it wasn't even died in Uadama, it died in Sivala to a bunch of Thrashers, so that was most likely a gank by the looks of it. So there you go. Now, what are we going to do next? Next, we're going to do the giveaway. I haven't got a keyword ready because I've got to think about that. But anyway, here it is, the Kestrel. Let me show you the Kestrel. This is the skin that I've got to give away. So obviously 2 more of those to give away. And you have to make up a sentence in the YouTube comments down below with a keyword of my choosing. You know what? We're going to go with Thrasher. Okay, so Thrasher is the ship that was used here for this gank. So let's go with Thrasher as our keyword. And the cutoff date for the competition is 1800 UTC on Friday, the 6th of May, 2022. So please do that. It may take me a little while to get back to you as to whether you've won the skin or not, as I will be at FanFest on the pub crawl at that time, to be precise. So yeah, it may take me a few more days than usual to get back to you, but do check your comments, and I'll either way, one way or the other, I'll let you know in the show, as always, if you've won the skin or not. All right, so back to the news, and this time around, we're going to go over to Providence. Now, we generally don't talk much about Providence. Providence is the home of Wrecking Crew. They have the area pretty well nailed down. There's not a lot of roaming that goes on there, but this time there was a Confessor fleet that was roaming around, and they spotted an Ark, which basically had wandered off tether. And so they went and for this is obviously Pandemic Horde, went for this Ark. And unfortunately, I've got a video here, and you can see this is the Confessor fleet right now shooting the Ark. The Ark is almost destroyed. And unfortunately, the Apostle that was coming to save it jumped to a beacon. You can see it coming in now. It is literally just landing. And it was just those few seconds too late to be able to land reps. There you go. So literally just, probably about 10 seconds too late, unfortunately. Help did come, so the Apostle did survive. But it was more a case of just sometimes, you like to think you can be the hero that saves the day at the last second. And unfortunately, the Apostle didn't quite make it. So there you go. So and obviously the main thing there as well was the Ark was literally just floated off the Asbel by the looks of it, and that is why it got caught. So there we go. I'm mostly showing that just because there's a video to go with it as well, and it was just kind of unfortunate that it was just that kind of timing on it. Right, another piece of news, as I understand, Test are moving some spare capitals down from Outer Passage to Innsmother, to a Keepstar there, simply because of what we're going to be talking about soon, which is the Imperium advance going in this direction. They've gone through Fetherbolis, and they are now clearly heading into Omist. So before we get to Omist, let's talk about Tenerifis. Now, Tenerifis, the thing to note here is Lollipop Monopoly used to own all of this SOV. In the last week, Dracaris have come in and taken it all. Dracaris have always been present in Tenerifis. They've been a thorn in Fire's side by having these 4 systems, which they've been unable to push them out of. And as you can see now, they've basically pushed further in, and Lollipop Monopoly just didn't have the numbers to be able to do the sub warfare to be able to protect themselves. So the Imperium now have they have 2 constellations foothold in Tenerifis, including this one system here, which is that part? No, that's part of the bottom constellation. Never mind. But anyway, you get the general idea. Now, the important thing as well to note is that down here, this could be a flashpoint. If I draw a line straight through the middle here, on the right-hand side, here we have, I believe, test subcaps, as well as it being kind of a main bridge point. I think there's a jump Ansiblex that goes from somewhere into Tenerifis into here, which is kind of the route into Fethabolis. And on the flip side, on the other side of this regional gate, the Imperium have a Fortizar in JI-LJM. And so this could potentially be a flashpoint should the Imperium decide to push into Tenerifis. The Fire Coalition have considered the Fethabolis and Omist to be the floodplains, but Tenerifis and Essentia are part of Tyre, which is a sub-community within Fire Coalition. Tyre standing for Tenerifis and Essentia reunited, and so therefore that would not be considered floodplains, and the Fire Coalition would have to respond in force to be able to defend if basically stuff comes into T2-V8F. So let's go over to Omist then. So Omist, we talked about that last week, how this whole area here was kind of glassed last week, and as you can see, things have progressed, and it's now pushing even further in. And eventually, I imagine in the next week or so, it's going to push all the way over to the other side of Omist. And this is a complete glassing by the Imperium. It's not just Sov that's being kind of removed, but also all the structures that are there. Now, there was a fight over one of the Fortizars. It was Star Trails Alliance Fortizar. And if you remember all the way back to when we were talking about Pureblind, let me see if I can find the right battle report. Here we go. No, that's the Esoteria one. It must be this one. Here we go. So it was in the system of R2TJ-1. It's a tongue twister for me, clearly. And the thing that was of note here is that you can see it was a Star Trails Alliance Fortizar, but Fraternity came out in big numbers to support this. Now, there seems to be a friendship between Star Trails Alliance and some groups within Fraternity within the Chinese time zone. And so it looks like Fraternity were very willing to make the journey, and it's a long journey as well to get all the way from Vale of the Silent all the way down to Omist. But they made the journey, and it was a pretty hefty loss there on the side of the Imperium as well. Primarily because I think the Apostles were made up the vast majority of those losses. There was apparently a fax on grid that belonged to Fraternity, and there was a discussion in my Discord as to how that got there. I think the final decision was that it didn't make its way all on its own. It most likely got borrowed from someone into Star Trails Alliance, I would imagine. Also, worth noting, Pandemic Horde showed up to assist in not only Rebs, but also in some carriers as well. And as we know from a battle report from last week, the Imperium do have capitals in Omist, most notably dreadnoughts and carriers. So surprising not to see them deployed here, but they may show up a little bit later on. I think APOC navies as well. So there's Apostles and APOC navies were the two things that made up the most of these losses. In fact, we can just check here quickly. Yeah, there you go. So you can see 29 billion in Apostles, and then 11 billion in APOC navies. All right, so that's pretty much it for Omist. So it's kind of business as usual as that basically that glassing continues. Then in Essentia, it's worth noting that it looked like Wrecking Crew were creating some havoc to some Black Rose and already replaced Sov that was right on the edge with Catch. But that seems to have quietened down now. As you can see, there's nothing ref there, but it was refed a little bit earlier on in the week. And then what have we got? Then we're going to go over to Fethabolis. So Fethabolis, well, okay, so I just noticed this just now. So high-sec miners I didn't know who they were last week. I found out they used to fly with Tissue, that's psychotic tendencies. They used to live in the same part of Geminate with Tissue, and that's where they were based. And they decided to come and set themselves up in Omist, in Fetherbolis. I think there were talks on them potentially joining Red Menace Coalition, judging by the fact that all of these systems are now refed, if it's the iHubs, which I think it is. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, the iHubs and the TCUs are all reinforced. That would suggest that Red Menace Coalition were unable to come to an agreement with HiSec miners, and it looks like they're going to be pushed out very, very soon, as I don't think Tissue are going to come all the way down and fight Red Menace Coalition on their own with that. As you can see, for the rest of the space now, it's all now Red Menace Coalition with Saurian Advance down the bottom here, Spaceship Family, Reloaded, who I forgot to mention last week, my apologies, Cosmic Coalition, I've got to get it the right way around because there's Cosmic Accord, who are part of Fire, Cosmic Coalition, flipped sides and joined RMC, and then obviously we've got Red Alliance in there as well. And then finally, after all my doodles, there's actually a few systems here that are Imperium. So we've got Dracaris, have got some systems right here, and then Goonswarm have got a couple, and then in it we've got a couple. What a mess. Okay, right, let's delete that. So there you go. So Fetherbolis is now pretty stabilized. Let me make sure that it's definitely Cosmic Coalition. I haven't messed up my words. Yeah, Cosmic Coalition, good. All right, now what else we got? Okay, so let's go to the home of Red Menace Coalition, which is actually Esoteria. The news there really is that now Stainrus only have 3 systems left in Esoteria. Previously, they owned all the areas I highlight in blue, along with, I think, these 3 systems here. And so Red Menace Coalition, with the help of Triumvirate and CBA, have managed to push Stainrus back. And I would assume that these 3 systems highlighted in pink will probably go in the next week or so. And as I understand, Stainrus have actually pulled all their assets back into Stain, which is where they is their homeland, and then they kind of regather their forces and then project outwards again when the time is right. There was a fight in 0-06XF, which was this one. And it was just worth noting because there was some quite heavy losses by Stainrus on this one, primarily dreadnoughts. As I understand, a fax ended up getting bumped off a structure. So basically some dreads were dropped by Red Menace Coalition. Stainrus counter-dropped, but RMC, Red Menace Coalition, Triumvirate and CVA had better numbers, and they were able to take out all of these dreads that were dropped, basically. So there you go. Then some random stuff. So we always like a little bit of random stuff. So first of all, we got a battle report here, and we've not seen these guys in a while. Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports. They've been very, very quiet recently. They decided to try and anchor a Fortizar on an alt corporation. Snuffed Out got wind of it. And basically Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports tried to protect it, but obviously they didn't have any tether or anything, and the Paladins all got destroyed, as well as a whole bunch of Revs. Notable as well as Bjorn B is on there. I assume that he's flying with Hidden Leaf right now, because you don't just generally show up in a Moros in the middle of nowhere when there happens to be a fight on. So I'm taking a guess there, but I'm assuming that's what's happening with Bjorn right now, just kind of enjoying the game and finding some buddies to fly with. So there you go. Also, it should be noted that was quite the blob from Snuffed Out. So it wasn't just Revs, it was a whole bunch of Legions as well. So as you can see, along with the usual Nestors and the Zarmads that they like to use for their Logi, as well as some Guardians. So yeah, basically this is your standard Snuffed Out fleet, really, I suppose. Legions and Revs. Anyway, but it's not all sunny and roses and stuff for Snuffed Out, because they did manage to lose a Titan in Essence. It looks like it was traveling by the looks of it. It was caught by Shadow Cartel. I have the battle report here. What makes me think it was traveling was the fact there was a Pilgrim on there, as well as a Rev and an Apostle. And they all died, all on their own. And the funny thing as well as being Shadow Cartel, being within jump range of Shadow Cartel. Really strong alliance, showed up with a couple of nixes as well. And then down here we have this ganker who belongs to an amazing corp name called, the corporation is called Loot Fairy Repossessions. So maybe that's where all the loot fairies giving all of their loot to. And as you can see, that's clearly a multi-boxer in Talos's, who managed to get in on a Titan kill there. So all of his alts there managed to get on that Titan kill by the looks of it. And then, this is an unfortunate one, this Sharon, who was part of Don't Wake a Sleeping Care Bear, Time Relax, was unfortunately killed by their own pos with a fully loaded freighter. Now, the reason why this freighter was fully loaded is, if you remember with wormholes, if your structure is at risk and if it's going to die, then it's going to drop everything. So normally wormhole pilots will put all their stuff in a freighter and then either log it out in a safe spot or warp it to a pos. And it looks like some of the ACLs, the access lists, weren't set up quite correctly, and unfortunately the Sharon was killed. And what was really unfortunate, there was the pilot either didn't have an alt with sufficient permissions to turn off the tower or the pos, or didn't have any corpies online at the time that could do it. And yeah, so there you go. That was 25 billion lost in a really unfortunate way. A Fortizar was destroyed in a wormhole. Don't know any reason why. I assume it's some kind of an eviction. Just wanted to mention it because my favorite ship is on the kill mouth. Two of them, in fact. There's two Zenitras made a showing for this fort killing. So there you go. I just wanted to mention it just because there were some Zenitras there. Then we're going to talk about our ratting kills and whaling kills. 8 raw calls this week on whaling kills. There was only 7 last week, so it's kind of died down a bit. It was like a dozen or so during March, during most of April, and then the last couple of weeks it's kind of died off. And then supers, if we go over to the supers, where are my supers? Here we go. Mostly all ratting supers this week, so there was 5 of them, these 5 here. Some things to note was that basically most of them died in Fire Coalition territory, so Deterid, Innsmother, then there was 1 in Malpais, which is Brothers of Tangra, which is NC.Renters, and 1 belonging to Dracarys. Now, 2 of these, the Nyx that's right here, and this one here, were both killed by the same 2 pilots. So if I open that up in a new tab, you can see we got Blad and Bayside over the 2 hells that destroyed this Rata, and it was the same 2 on the other one. And then this Russian Legion of Honor Nyx is worth mentioning because it was a solo kill by Lazy Crab ASL. Obviously there's a dicta there, but it was just the one super shooting this super by the looks of it. So some solo roaming there with an alt by the looks of it by Lazy Crab ASL, who managed to bag himself a super, so that was pretty good going. Right, a couple of other things. It's been mentioned before, my background. So this is a piece of artwork that I found somewhere, I can't remember where. Quite a few people have commented on it, want to know where it comes from. I would love to give credit to the artist that made this beautiful representation of an Estor. So if you know A, where to find it, and B, who the artist is, please get in touch with me on my Discord so that I can give credit to this artist for this beautiful piece of artwork. Right, then, sorry, that was very loud. Finally, I'm going to be at FanFest, so there will be no show next Tuesday. I'm coming back on Tuesday afternoon, so I doubt I will have time to get everything together and put a show together for next Tuesday, I'm afraid. Nor is there a Twitch show on Friday, as I will be on the pub crawl, and I don't have all my stuff with me. So I will be back in a couple of weeks, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, and I will see you soon. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be on CCP TV on the Saturday afternoon as I am a co-host on the show. All right, see you then. Bye.